Good afternoon everybody. It's just another video from Smurfy and I, and today we wanted to talk about a video I've been promising to make for a while now, but I have to be very careful about making such a video because the last thing I want to do is make a video where people feel judged, and that's not what I want to do at all. In fact, I want to do the very opposite of that, and it's to do with advice on African greys. And you see a lot of advice on social media channels and on YouTube, and I have to say that a lot of the advice is good advice. So I certainly, what is the point of me doing a video on good diet when there are already really good videos on diet, and the advice is sound, but what concerns me is when advice can be bad advice, when the best advice would be no advice. And sometimes some advice is actually dangerous advice. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm always somebody who's very reluctant to give advice for good reason. Not only do I think that your first point of call when you have any issues surrounding an African grey parrot is to book an appointment with an avian veterinary specialist. They really know their stuff, and that would be my first point of call. But if you do go on social media channels and you do ask for advice, just be wary of where that advice is coming from and how it can potentially be dangerous. So I'm of the opinion that quite often the best advice is no advice. And what do I mean by that? Well, people really need to be in full knowledge of the age of your bird, the environment of your bird, the diet of your bird, the history of your bird, and the medical history of your bird. And all of those things are really, really important because they can drastically affect the kind of advice that you should be given. And more often than not, I see people on social media forums like Facebook diving in head first with their informative and expert armchair advice, and I sometimes get the impression that they don't even really care about the bird. It's all about them. They just want to come across as, look at me, I know all these things and I'm so clever, and I'm an oracle on African grey parrots. It's about their ego. It's not actually about the bird. Because if it was about the bird, they would know that you need to be in full receipt of that knowledge to give a qualified opinion, and even then it's only an amateur opinion. If you take your African grey parrot to see an avian specialist vet, they will ask you those questions that I've just mentioned before they even think about giving a diagnosis, before they even think about giving a treatment. And why is that so important? Well, because you need to understand the age of the bird, because African grey parrots change. They're no different from any other creature on the planet, and their needs change as they grow older. They have their hatchling period when they are babies, and fledgling period when they are producing their feathers, when they are becoming independent feeders, and they are becoming independent flyers. And all those things happen quite naturally in the wild, but of course they don't have parents in the wild. They only have breeders and carers. But as the grey grows older, for the first 2 years, the fledgling process, the diet is different. It's not drastically different, but it is different. And then from about 2 years old, they move into their teenage years, and their dietary requirements change again. And then from about 4 years, it's not a given, but it's roughly about those sort of times. From birth to 2, from 2 to 4 teenage years, and then from about 4 onwards, they reach full maturity. and they don't do a massive amount of growing beyond 4. In the wild, they are very much moving into the world of adulthood at that point. And their diet changes again. And people need to know how old your African grey is before they can start giving you advice on what your African grey should be eating. Similarly, the medical history of your African grey parrot is extremely important when giving dietary advice and general advice. Now, it might be that your African grey has a deficiency because it has a history of illness, in which case supplements can play a really important role, as can pellets. But if you have an absolutely healthy, happy African grey parrot that is routinely blood tested, why do you need supplements? In fact, it could actually be a negative thing. You can literally overdose your parrot and give it too much vitamins, too much calcium. So I'm all for people giving advice, but know the parrot that you're giving advice to. History of your parrots are also really important things to understand because, again, it does affect diet. Now, I know I could come under flack because I provide Murphy with a small piece of meat in her diet every day. And that might be mackerel, or it might be grilled chicken, or it might be herring. It's a small piece of meat. But I choose to do that, and I can do that because her bloods are perfect, because she is an extremely happy, healthy parrot. Now, why do I feel it's necessary to just make sure that Smurf gets a little bit more protein than, say, another parrot? Well, that's right for my parrot, you see, because she spends huge amounts of time outside of her cage, expending a lot of energy, flying, climbing, anything up to 6-7 hours a day she is outside getting engagement. And because she's like a pocket rocket and she just never settles down at all, she gets through a lot of energy. She'd get through far more energy than, say, like an African grey, for whatever reason, spends most of its life in its cage. So I can introduce a little bit more protein into a diet, or a little bit more calcium into a diet, because not only do I know my bird and I know she's very healthy, I also have blood tests done which reaffirm what I already know. But that's a diet for Smurfy. That might not necessarily be the right diet for your parrot. You ready? And that's really my point, that all birds are very different. And that is why I'm reluctant to give advice online. Because an avian veterinary specialist would know that, well, they would need to know that before they dive in, and before they could give you advice which could potentially harm your parrot. You're not hungry. You're not hungry. She's not hungry. We might be hungry. I try to give a sensible video. I hate making sensible videos. I'm boring, aren't I? But it's very important. It's something that really, really aggravates me. And I'm sure some of it is really well intentioned. But occasionally I come across advice which is just plain balmy and dangerous. Because the people giving me advice know nothing about your parrot. And they really should know before they give you the advice, however well-meaning it is. And lastly, I wanted to address the thing about pellets. Now again, if you have a history with your bird that there are deficiencies or something, pellets can be brilliant. I'm not against pellets at all. I am against the overprescription of pellets, like they are an all-in-one remedy for everything. This started happening about 10 years ago, really. They've been around a bit longer than that, but it started about 10 years ago, and Smurfy came into my life 8 years ago. And I remember the furore that an all-pellet diet is the way forward. All-pellet diet this, all-pellet diet that. vets prescribing all pellet diets. And I thought, that's madness. I was against that for a couple of reasons, which I'll outline. But you have here an extraordinarily intelligent creature. Their brain capacities, their levels of higher cognitive understanding and learning are well documented. It's what makes them so clever. So even though they have a tiny brain, it's the kind of brain they have. And it is packed with, I sound like intelligent now, but I'm not, like these sort of spongiform nuclei, these concentrations of, electrical connections. They're jam-packed with them, as are primates, as are crows, and as are human beings. And they're kind of responsible for, like I say, higher levels of thinking and understanding. Our parrots are genuinely very emotional. They do form strong bonds, and one of the really important things to keep a happy, healthy African grey parrot is keep things fun for them. And I can think of nothing duller, more likely to drive your African grey parrot to suicidal thoughts than feeding it bloody pellets every day in, day out. Have some more pellets, num num num. Guess what you got to eat for tea today? Pellets. Guess what you got for tea tomorrow? Pellets. Guess what you got for breakfast the next day? Pellets. Please, give me a break. They deserve much more than that. Are you looking forward to tomorrow? I think a really good quality seed diet is, a great thing. I use Tidy Mix. I'm quite happy to plug them. I'm not paid for doing that. But she's had the Tidy Mix diet for 7 years, and she loves it. It's got 38 different ingredients in it: pulses, seeds, low fat seeds at that, so it's low on sunflower seeds. It's got 38 ingredients, really interesting for her to eat, and she's excited about eating it every morning. And in addition to that, I also put P15 pellets into a diet, just in case she didn't eat that much seed, or she only ate a couple of banana chips or whatever. She's got the pellets there, and she does eat the pellets too. So in the morning she has got pellets with a quality seed diet, but I use them sparingly. In the evening she has fresh food, which I'm a big campaigner for. She has 80% vegetables, 15% fruit and 5% meat. And again, I don't need being told by somebody that, you can't feed your parrot meat, you can't do this, you can't do that. Her bloods are spot on, so I know I'm doing the right thing. Okay, and that works for her. Your diet may be different, but I would definitely encourage you, if you can, to introduce fresh food in the evening. If for nothing else, it's just fun for your parrot. With these incredible smart creatures, they want to eat and they want to be excited. They're very excited about eating in the wild, and we sometimes lose track of the fact that these birds are, opportunist omnivores. Eating your breakfast. Yes, in the wild it's well documented that they will eat, in addition to leaves and grass and palm fruit, that they'll eat snails, they'll eat carrion, they'll eat carcasses on the jungle or forest floor. They will eat fish that have been washed up. They can't catch fish, they're not designed to catch fish, but they'll eat dead fish. They will eat pretty much bloody anything that they can get their hands on, and they are masters at regulating their own bodies. If you see them eating clay, you'll see them eating mud. We think that is, again, eating clay and everything is just to regulate and keep everything balanced in their bodies. They're masters at doing it in the wild, and you don't see suicidal parrots in the wild. So yeah, that's why I'm not against pellets. I'm cautious about pellets. I don't think a pellet only diet is a good thing. And again, you have to see the bigger picture. Who are these people promoting only pellet diets? These experts that are promoting only pellet diets. What do they gain by promoting an only pellet diet? Who do they work for? Who are they sponsored by? You know? So, yeah, I'm not anti-pellets. I just think they should be used in moderation. A good seed diet, a few pellets, and fresh food, I don't think you can go wrong. And again, talk to an avian specialist vet about your parrot, about the lifestyle of your parrot, how old your parrot is, and what your parrot gets up to each day. Because it could be that introducing, additional vitamins and calcium and everything is unnecessary and could potentially be dangerous. There's some good study into actually, the liquid form of vitamins and calcium that you drop into their water. Some interesting evidence to suggest that, what is actually then in the water once that alleged wonder drug gets dispersed in the water, and how much does your parrot actually drink of that water, whether you're literally just throwing your money away. Better evidence for the sprinkled vitamins and stuff that you can sprinkle onto their dry food. But again, ask yourself, do you need to do this? Have you been advised to do this by an avian veterinary specialist? That they are prone to calcium deficiency is not a given that your parrot has calcium deficiency. Have you had bloods done? Does it show that your bird has a calcium deficiency? Because if it doesn't, do you really need to be adding supplements to your parrot's diet? Again, I would go and speak to an avian veterinary specialist. If I had a real concern, I would not be going and asking advice online. However well-meaning it can be. But really, if people are not in a position where they know the age of your bird, the lifestyle of your bird, the history of your bird, and the medical history of your bird, they could get that diagnosis very wrong. That's all I'll say. You won't see me offering, that kind of advice for the reasons that I've just explained. Off she goes. But anyway, I hope that clears that up. I don't mean to come across patronisingly or like to, lecturing people. That's not what I'm about and what my channel is about. I really only give a shit about African grey parrots and their owners. Their owners are often overlooked in this equation. I can't stand it when people bully owners because they've got something wrong. A little thing happened to me 6 years ago. I put a picture up of Smurfy on one of these Facebook channels, and she had a grey aviator harness on outside, and it wasn't very obvious that she had a grey aviator harness on. I bought the grey one because I wanted it to kind of disappear into her feathers, and it did the trick. But I had loads of idiots. You can't do that with your parrot. You can't take your parrot outside without a harness. She had a harness on. Had they been polite and asked me, I could have explained to them that she was wearing a harness, but they didn't. They just jumped in. And again, I see it time and time again on Facebook communities, people just launching in when someone has just quite innocently come in for a bit of advice, or they wanted to share their parrot, and you've got to be sensitive to parrot owners. It's a hard job looking after them, really hard job, and we get it wrong because it's so demanding. It's incredibly rewarding as well, but it's difficult, and the only way that we're going to get numbers down from abandoned greys and greys given up for adoption and greys tragically sometimes just lit out to fend for themselves because their owners have just had enough, often because they feel worthless, because they feel they can't get anything right. The only way we're going to get those numbers down is by encouraging people and supporting people in a positive way and saying, hey, maybe I wouldn't do it that way, but have you considered doing it that way? Or, good for you, you're doing a fantastic job, look how wonderful and healthy your bird is, good on you. That's the only way we're going to get around bringing numbers down of disasters and rejected birds. And and surely that benefits the parrot too. You want to have parrot owners that are really confident, happy and encouraged by their caring for their animals. So I can only think that's a win-win situation. So this is what this video is about. No lectures, no I know all the answers. I don't know all the answers. What have I done? I have raised successfully one very happy, healthy African grey parrot from a fledgling. That's all I've done. That's my one success. But I have done it successfully. And that's what I bring to the table. I am not an expert, and I always try to refer people to a really good avian veterinary specialist and get bloods done if you're in any doubt, because that's the only way you're ever going to really know. I hope that helps. I hope you've enjoyed my serious video. I won't make another for another 6 months. And have a lovely weekend. Bye for now.